All right, guys, and welcome back. Let me just make this straight. So, here are some things that, and it's a question I've seen posed a few times that what are what are the things that you wish you knew when you started this lockpicking journey of yours? And it is a journey. What are the things you wish someone had actually sat down and told you about picking locks? And this is going to be a really long video. I don't feel like breaking it up into a series. I just want to go through the whole thing. Um, and it's going to be a long video. So, guys, please just bear with me and watch the whole thing because I have literally wasted thousands of rands. It's hundreds of dollars on kit that's and stuff that just doesn't work, or you're wasting your money, or it's a waste. A lot of it is a waste, and so yeah, the things I wish I knew. I wish I knew before we started this. And the first thing to realize is that we have to stop seeing this as a lock, and we have to stop seeing lock sport, lock picking as picking a lock. Um, we have to start seeing it as a puzzle. All right. So, you know, when you see it as a puzzle, now think about a puzzle. You don't, it is a puzzle, but you're doing it blindfolded, right? Because you can't really, you cannot see what's going on in there, can you? And so the first thing is, when I was a kid, and when you're a kid, you don't give them a 20,000 piece puzzle to do. You give them a six-piece puzzle when they're a few years old, and you like, right, put this together. And as you've done the six, then you do a 10, then you do a 200 piece, then you do a 5,000 piece. So it's a journey, it's a growth, and it's puzzles. So apparently, when I was a kid, I used to do puzzles upside down. So it wasn't really the picture. So I was like, as like a 5 or 6 year old, I was picking locks because I was doing a puzzle blindfolded, literally. Um, so let's think of this as a puzzle first. Now, how are we able to pick a lock? And there is only one thing that allows us to pick a lock, and that is imperfections, right? And you're going to hear about guys talking about tolerances and everything. So I think we need to look at some definitions first, right? So so when we talk about it, you can understand, because it can get very confusing if you don't have a clear basic knowledge of tolerances. And so what I've done is I've made a little diagram here. So in a lock, bit of terminology here, and let me find a pointer, right? So in a lock, you're going to find this is the plug, and this bit, the lock body or the cylinder. You're going to see holes in there. On a padlock, they plugged up, and this is the barbel. Now inside that barbel, you have a spring, you have a driver pin, and then inside here you have a key pin that slides up. So this is sort of what the stack looks like, a key stack. And we're just going to start with this one. I don't want to mess them up because then I got to figure out what's going on where. So I'm going to bring this up real close so you can see there's your spring. Let's look at this row. And there's your driver pin, which sits down in the barbel, and there's a key pin. So when you are picking a lock, you are moving the key pin up and down until it meets the shear line. And the shear line is this over here. That bit where the barbel, you see it's got little cylinders in there, your key pins sitting there. So this bit along here, that's the shear line. And so when you get a pin set, it turns a little bit. And you're going to hear a little click or whatever. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe you just feel it. Um, and that's how you can pick a lock, right? So why would one pin get set and the others don't? So what's happening here is that you're actually putting a little bit of tension on this, wherever, however, we'll get into that. You're turning this a little bit. So you're putting tension on, right? When you turn it with the correct amount of force, one of these pins is going to be the first one to bind up. And that is what they call the binding order. Okay, so these are the basics. And the reason why they don't all bind up at the same time is because of the word tolerances. So what a tolerance really is an engineer will say that now this is the lock body here. He'll say that distance, for example, there will be 2 millimeters. Now you cannot make the key pin and the driver pins and everything exactly 2 millimeters, otherwise air gets trapped in here like a piston and it's going to move. So you need a little bit of a gap. So he'll say that driver pin and the key pin must be 1.8 millimeters. And that's what he wants. The engineer wants that. But the machinist can not make that perfectly 1.8. So the engineer will specify a tolerance. And that tolerance is how much variation from that figure the machinist is allowed. So if he says you may have a 0.5 mil tolerance, that's quite a high number. 0.5 is relatively high. That means that might be 1.75 or it might be 1.85. So 0.05 millimeters either way. And that's quite a high amount, right? Or he says that must be, you have a 0.01 millimeter tolerance. That's how much millimeters, or in washing machines or inches or whatever, or a percentage. That's how much he may vary from that figure. So a high tolerance means a higher variation from that amount, which means he's got more leeway in his engineering. A low tolerance, so a 0.05 millimeters is a higher tolerance, which means more imperfect. And 0.01 is a low tolerance, which means more perfect. So a high tolerance is less precise. A low tolerance is more precise. But there will be a tolerance. And that's why there is never a perfect world. So when you're turning that, the tolerance on the lock can be high or low. And we're going to be talking about this quite a lot. So it is a concept you need to get. That is why one pin will bind until you set it. By setting it, that means that position here, this exact point there, sits on that shear line, which is between that hole and that hole, because it's moved and there's a little ledge. So that comes down, that's your round plug, and there's your key pin. And then your cylinder sits around it, and actually that comes a little bit off, forming a ledge over there. And we basically want to get the driver pin below that edge and the key pin in the plug. That's what we're trying to get. Now, that configuration varies in different types of locks. So remember, we're looking at low versus high tolerance, and low tolerance is more precise, high tolerance less precise. So you see what I mean? It's easy to get a little bit confused with that. So that's the first thing. that you need to know. Now, when it comes to picking a lock, we are looking at three aspects. And this is the third one is something I wish someone told me a long time before. Excuse me. The first action is tension, or the first aspect. How much tension you put on that lock. So I can give an inexperienced person the best kit in the world, right? The best kit, and they will not be able to open that lock because you need to put the exact amount of tension on that lock that lock requires, and then you need to start picking it that one pin is binding, not two or three, one pin. And that is the second aspect. So the first is tension, the second is binding order. Now, what happens when you have got that configuration, the shear line over there? How do you know? Because some locks have very, very, very low tolerances, and you're not even going to hear a click or anything. You're just going to be moving it, and you might feel a bit of movement in the core. And the Abus Titanium is like that. You just love slight movement in the core, and you don't really know. So the third one is the jiggle test. So when you've got that on the shear line, and you just put a little bit of pressure on the key pin, it should move just a little bit. If it's moving a lot, it's not in the binding order or you've got an overset. So you're doing a jiggle test to see. That is now, if it just moves a bit, it means it's set. If it's solid, it means it's not set or overset or your tension's too high. So these are the basics on how we are allowed or how we get to use those tolerances to pick a lock successfully, right? So I think that's the basic terminology in engineering and what that we need to know on how to pick a lock. So where do we begin? Where do we? So again with the puzzles, right? You're not going to give a 5-year-old a 20,000 piece puzzle. You're going to give them a 6-piece puzzle or a 4-piece puzzle. Because you give them a 25-year, they're just going to eat the pieces. That's what they're going to do. So do not be afraid to get yourself, and I know people will differ, an acrylic lock. Now, this is a Disdatain acrylic because I started off with the acrylic pin tumblers. And I didn't know, now I've moved through a journey on pin tumblers. Now I'm on Disdatainers. So puzzles are not for everyone. You don't see everyone doing puzzles. So don't be afraid to get yourself a cheap set off Amazon or Takealot or whatever with an acrylic lock. Now, a lot of people will tell you, yeah, but the acrylic lock is rubbish. It's going to break. It's going to this. It's not going to last. They are not made to last. They are made to show you how it works. They will break. They will not last. These are not, it's not really a practice lock. It's just a demonstration lock. So you do not need to spend a lot of money on this lock to see what's happening. If you want something that's going to last, get yourself off to Multipick and get yourself a very expensive practice lock so you can see what's happening. I honestly don't use this. Spend a lot of money on it, and I just learned one thing. And that is how the pick moves through the keyway. So it's actually taught me more about the pick than about the types of pins. It comes with a wide range of pins, serrated spools, blah, 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 gin mushrooms, a whole lot. And I've never ever repinned that. But I have learned that different picks behave differently in different locks. So let's leave that aside for now and get yourself an acrylic lock with a cheap set. Now, when you're getting a cheap set, just beware. So here are some little pieces that I got. What I realized is some of them, the more gold ones, are a lot thicker, right? You're not going to pick much with that because a pick consists of there's two real factors. Three, the profile, the thickness, and the actual type of point, which I guess is a profile really. So I've found that these ones with the bigger plastic handles and that are no good. They are just too thick to get through anything. I found that your thinner sandwiched ones that are made in China. Now, this is some kind of hardened steel. I'm telling you, it's not mild steel because you try drilling through this. It is quite hard, but it's not 301 stainless steel. Okay, it just isn't. But it's strong enough. And honestly, when you start picking, you're going to be putting too much tension and you're going to be bending picks and damaging them and that. So, a cheap set with some acrylic locks are your answer, and some start off with some locks and make your mistakes and damage your cheap stuff. And if you can get an acrylic lock set with one of these little wire tensioners in, I would get it because I'll tell you that in a while, probably in a long while. Why? That's a bonus. I still keep that. I still use that to this day. So that sort of covers your cheaper Chinese. I mean, you can see I've never used this. These I've sort of modified. That's the key extractor. I've never used it. It's never, you know. But I do find these ones with a sandwiched handle, which is just the pick sandwich between the two. It was a great starting set, and I still keep quite a few items from that set, and that's what you want. So let's go on to the lockpick sets, right? Be very wary of this is something I've learned, and I've learned buy once, cry once when it comes to lockpick sets, because if you get a medium quality set, right? And by medium quality, I would actually like to show you and gimmicks, right? You don't need all the fancy gimmicky stuff. You do not need it, okay? You just don't, because what you need is hooks and rakes. That's what you need. Hooks and rakes. And there's hooks you need and you need rakes. I have bought all the gimmicks, and I'm telling you, they were just gimmicks. Now I see something and I think, well, that's great, right? So you tell me, what lock is that going to fit into? What lock is that going to fit into? This is a wonderful concept. It's just too big. It doesn't fit in any lock. So a lot of money has been spent on rubbish or mediocre picks. That is rubbish because it doesn't actually fit into any locks. And don't be misled by YouTube videos because these guys, well, man, they get given kit, right? And then they gonna, do a review and they're gonna tell you how amazing it is. Of course, it's amazing, and they're gonna find the one lock that I don't know how big that bloody lock is, but anyway, I think I've gotten one of these to work on one lock that was massive, and that was it. They haven't picked anything else, so that was a waste of money. Um, I'm going to show you mediocre kit if I can find it, because that was my pointer and I don't know where I put it. So, there you are, you little bugger. Gotcha. Surprised we haven't had the cat. The cat went to the vet this morning. Let's get a little bit of light on. This is multi-pick made in Germany. It's a 0.4 euro hook, shallow euro hook. That's what I started with because that's what I got in. I didn't start with multi-pick. I got with the cheap set, and then this is a cheaper brand I've had to actually engrave on there. Your multi-pick comes engraved. Now, I am not sponsored by multi-pick. I've spent a fortune on multi-pick, and that is zero point 0.4 millimeters, and I've had to engrave in there zero point 0.4. So I know what's what. You can also feel. So when you feel, they are the same, right? And these are supposedly both of them 301 high yield stainless steel. And when I push them down, and you're not going to get a good. Now I'm putting the same amount of force on both of them, and I'm going to damage the table, but you can see that movement along the shaft, right? There's no movement there, and look at the movement here. Same force, same thickness, same shaft, but look how that shaft has bent and the multi-pick has not. Um, so that is bent up. So I've not actually broken a pick, but I've bent quite a few of these because I don't know what it is. What it says on the tin, okay, multi-pick, don't say what it is made of. It's hardened steel, but I can tell you COVID instruments, the rest are all 301 high yield, and they're really good quality. So you're just going to spend money on that, and it's going to end up in a pile of picks that are never used again. So go straight for gold when it comes to your picks. Go for the highest quality because you're going to end up spending a lot more on locks, and you need to have budget because, like a puzzle, you're going to start off with a 6-piece or a 4-piece, and that's going to work. The cheaper one is going to work on that 4-piece puzzle. It isn't going to work on a 20,000 piece puzzle, and you're going to end up buying that anyway. So rather save yourself that money and go straight for gold and get that. Um, that's the one thing I wish I did. It seems expensive, but trust me, it's way more expensive to spend a fortune on that and other stuff and shims. And all my shims ended up in the dustbin. Rubbish. Different types of rakes, snake rakes, city rakes, what rakes, this, that, the next thing. Let me tell you, thousands. And really, you want hooks and you want decent rakes. So let's go right back to what kit to buy. Now, I do have to tell you that, excuse me, your kit depends on the country you live in, right? Because these locks and lock picks are designed for the locks that exist in that country. Multi-pick is German, right? And German, we have a lot of Euro profiles. We also pick down because that Bible sits down. In the States, COVID instruments is American, the Bibles sit up, which makes more sense because water and dust and everything won't collect in there. And that is what jams a lockup. So, whatever I'm saying about kits, trust me, the kits I've got here in front of you is top tier stuff. It may not be stuff that works for me, um, all of it, and that's only because of the locks we have in this country. So, what I've realized, because we have a lot of Euro profiles, you often have to get your pick around warding. Same with the Abus, you have to get your pick around the warding. The warding is these bits in here. You see, that's good for a pointer, really. Um, so all of this is warding. Okay, so often you need to get around it. You're not just going straight down. So because of all these Euros, and then I got the multi-pick practice lock, and then I put the picks in there, and I realized why I couldn't pick a Euro because I realized that you've got to actually come around like that and not just down. A lot of the American stuff, I'm not saying you don't get this in America. You do, you get a lot more. But most of our locks, you have to go around. Your bigger padlocks, not so much. So a point 0.6, so your three common thicknesses is zero 0.4 millimeters, zero 0.5, and zero 0.6. A zero 0.6 millimeter won't get around there. A zero 0.4 millimeter will get around there. And that's when I realized, no, we need some more 0.4 millimeters to get around there to get that on. So I decided to bite the bullet and go all out on a multi-pick set. Now, just to clear things up, multi-pick is European and we have European locks. So I needed something that was very hook heavy because you can rake, you can chim, you can do whatever you like. But single pin picking is at the end of the day what you're going to be doing. So trying to get bypasses and shims and all sorts of things. You are just throwing money away, guys. You are eventually just going to be using your hooks. And look, I work on gate motors, and those keys are commonly lost. So I need an everyday carry that's with got some really great rakes, because I don't want to sit there single pin picking away at a lock when I can just zap it open with a number two reaper and be done, because I'm there to fix a gate. And it's often happened that I've gone there, and before that I couldn't do the job because they couldn't find the keys. And gate motor keys are the most lost keys. So very important to have an everyday carry that's very effective and very, very. It's going to open most locks, right? And so yeah, that's why I thought for my lock sport, I'm gonna hit it with a multi pick. So what I did was I got the Sandman Advanced set. Now, this is about €100, and what you're getting is a good leather case, great leather case. You're getting three different profiles. You can see in three different depths with two different thicknesses. So for each type of tip, let's take one out and look. These might be a little mixed up because they've sort of been mixed up. So this is a flat tip. There you can see, and then we have a rounded tip. There you can see it's a little bit more rounded. It may look like a gem, but it isn't. It's just a rounded tip. And then you get a sharp tip, which is not here because I took it out and mixed it up. But let's go for that. So flat, round, and sharp. And trust me, and then you get each one in two different thicknesses, which is zero point 0.6 and zero point 0.4, and then three different depths. So you're actually getting 9 of each profile. So it's 9, 18, 27 hooks you're getting for €100. So value for money, absolutely. For this, it's a very hook heavy set, which is what I wanted. I wanted a hook heavy set. Then you've got your rakes, okay? Now, these rakes are essentially the basics of what you're going to need. You've got your quints and your quads, and they've got all kinds of names for them. And basically, one is wavy, one is, these two are wider in profile, these two are narrower in profile, these have got 5, those have got 4, and then you'll see there that's got a sharpened tip and that's got a rounded tip. And yes, there are locks that will work on, that won't, and that will work on, and that won't, and that'll work on, and then likewise. So this gives you 4 rakes, and then it gives you a Bogota. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't know. I've never been good with a Bogota. Remember, like anything else, a lot of things move along with the time. So I think your Bogota, your city rakes, all these kind of things, useless. But to me, this is useless. A lot of guys are really good with that. I just find it jamming up, and it's for zipping and all sorts of raking and that. But it, it's not working for me. There's other things. These four work well for me. With these, you're going to get your double-sided tension wrench in 3 different sizes. These are nicely marked so you can see, and you can see something very interesting on here. No, you can't see it on here, but you do see it on the pry bars. Here you go. You can actually see it. You'll see how that tapers on both sides. Because I'm used to picking down, European Americans used to picking up. So that one goes in the top of the keyway, which is our bottom of the keyway. That one goes in the bottom of the keyway, which is our top of the keyway. And that one works that way, all that way, because of that little, compared to the COVID instruments, which is designed for picking up, because Americans pick up, you know, and that does make a difference in the tools. And it's not to knock COVID instruments at all. I love COVID instruments. but they are designed for a different market. And a lot of their stuff is really good, but it's for American locks. So being European, it's these are working for me most of the time, but then some of the time not. They also come with pry bars, and these go in your top of the keyway. Let's define them. Here's a lock, that's a keyway. So this is a top of the keyway pry bar. Now Americans go up like that. I don't know if this will, yep, it does, and then they pick up. So that works, but it doesn't work for me because I pick down. So I'm finding it very hard to tension that because I'm picking down. So I don't really use pry bars. There are a few odd occasions, like when a lock is in the door and I have more control over it, then I'm going to use it. But I don't really use pry bars a lot. That is a personal preference, and mostly due to the orientation of our locks. So, guys, for €100, what you're getting here is really fantastic. It is good value for money. I mean, if you take your dollar per pick and you compare it to anything else, nothing is going to come near multi-pick. All right, this is beautiful. The case is beautiful. I just have one issue with the case, is it carries a lot of picks, and that's the first issue. My second issue is it's not very hard. So I've had it in my bag where it's been to pick or two, and I do need an everyday carry because sometimes I just called out and let's go out to wherever, and I don't have the picks because he didn't have the keys, and I've had it before. Friday afternoon, come quickly look, and it's locked. They don't have the keys, and the guy just said to me, "Well, you could probably get in quicker than it would take me to find the keys." And yes, I did. And then now, as I grew, and then I found a supplier because being South Africa, we couldn't really get like really good locks. You got the standard stuff on the shelf, but nothing really great. Um, I then started getting some Americans and some Abus and Masters and that kind of stuff that actually needed a 0.5 millimeter pick. But I don't need the full range because you can get the triple gauge, but that is going to cost you a lot of money. So I didn't need the full range. I just needed some. So I bit the bullet, got a mate of mine, and they just while we on the multi pick, if you're going to go buy a multi pick, place your order for the Sandman Advanced set. Really get it. It's worth every penny. And then also see if you can get the little mini Y tensioner. I think it's €10. That's in stainless steel. It's really great. And get their decoder, which is fantastic and has a good handle. What I prefer about this to others, and I think the COVID instruments also do this, is it fits in your case. It's not too big handle, doesn't get in there. So everyday carry, that is. And I'm going to tell you something interesting. I went to go look at a gate. They didn't have a motor on. The gate slid shut. They had a very expensive Caesar lock on the gate. And on the wall, because we have a lot of security companies here, they had a master lock key box and 2,000 Rand Caesar lock worth nothing because you can open the master lock key box in a minute or so with this. So I don't know why you spend, security is an illusion. So do get those. And then another thing that about multi-pick, we're on multi-pick at the moment. There are the brands, we will get into them. The point I'm trying to drive across is go top end, go straight top end, because you're anyway going to end up there. You're going to end up doing a 10,000 piece puzzle and your cheaper stuff will work. But you're going to end up doing that 20,000. You're either going to put the puzzle down and it's not for you, then you've only wasted money on a cheap set and the credit block, or it is for you and you're going to spend a fortune. So rather go all the way out to the top immediately. A guy called Decoder, C. Holler, he does a lot of design for Multipick, a lot. And he also lives close to Multipick in Bonn in Germany. And he has these champion wrenches. Now, they're all different widths and they're all different thicknesses because remember aspect number one, tension control. That's the first thing you've got to learn is tension control. And these, I quite like them. You don't have the other bit getting in the way. And they've got 5 of them. I don't know why I only got 4. And they're actually designed for top of the keyway, and you will get a very, very snug fit. Yes, you can make them out of windshield wipers, or you can get cheaper ones, but they're going to flop around in there and you are going to struggle. So, aspect number one, the most important aspect is tension control. Spend money on turning tools or tensioners that are going to work for you. Now, I would suggest getting all 5 of these, even though they all look the same right now to you, or they are not the same. They are different thicknesses, different widths, and everything. And I like them. They're very basic. They do also just slide in the bag in these little bits, and you got them in your kit. So that's great. So that kind of covers, I think, for now, the multi pick. Um, it's great stuff. I've never bent broken anything, any of these multi pick stuff, and the cases are just gorgeous, and everything is gorgeous, and it is genuine leather. It smells really great, but we still need 0.5 mil picks. So what I then did was I went to get that, the Reaper set from COVID Instruments, to make up, because these are all in 0.5 mil. I've got to tell you something about COVID Instruments. They are not very hook heavy sets, okay? They just, they're not. Um, the Apex set isn't as hook heavy as this. It's a very hook heavy set. So you are going to be single pin picking and raking because you're going to buy, like I said, all the other goodies, the shims, the bypasses, and all that. You're going to see none of that works. You're going to chuck it away, and you're going to end up, and you start off by raking because it's nice. It's a bit of a rush getting the lock open. And you raked it, boom, and you got your rush and everything. It's not really lock sport. Um, you're not solving the puzzle. It's a shortcut to the puzzle. Your solving the puzzle happens with single pin picking. So to make up for this shortfall, I decided to bite the bullet and get the Reaper set. Now this is an amazing piece of kit for a number of reasons. The first is, okay, the case is a little bit, Mrs. just got home, and the case is, it's okay. I mean, like, I prefer the case, but it's all right. But these picks, now, the first thing you're going to do, very much like multi pick, like when I first picked this up, is you're going to feel pure quality. You're going to see where your money went. Pure quality. Now, there are two things that in fact, there's a number of things that makes this one of the most outstanding sets on the market. This designed by McNally. McNally's a genius, and he's come up with a number 2, which is also known as a Mactickler. And that profile it just smashes locks, man. That is just, it's actually for zipping, but I've used it for a little bit of raking. You can also single pin pick. It's a very versatile. And in fact, when I get to a gate motor, they don't have the keys. That is the first tool I pick up, is the number 2 Reaper. It's mental. And then you've got a very shallow reach thing. I've had occasion to actually have to use that. Then you got a shallow flat hook, and that flat hook is nice because when you go into the lock, you're gonna boom against. Let's say these are the key pins. Gunk. Oh, there's a key pin. Get on top of it and push it down, and then I slide it forward. Gunk. Oh, there's another one. Okay, and I slide it down. So for beginners, flat tips are great. Trust me, you're going to end up using all the different profiles in the multi-pick. Then it's got that foot, but a little bit deeper. And then you've got your number 5. Now, my number 5 is really a go-to on single pin pick because our first one, unless it's a Euro, um, or a padlock that is really big enough. But this is a nice depth. It's a nice profile, and it's, I mean, you can see this thing's seen some mileage, eh? It's what I'd use the whole time. So this McNally, the Reaper set is just a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic set, and there is enough room in the mulch pick bag for your extra picks, so you can add them in there. Then they come with two different types of tensioners. So I'm going to take these out and put them aside because these are daily go-tos and they go in my everyday carry. And again with the pry bars, except these are a little bit more funky. I'll get to those later. They're a little bit more funky, but I'm not one for pry bars. It's just a personal thing. Um, except for this one. This 32 thousandths of an inch is the only top of the keyway out of the box that will open a left-hand side. Now remember, there's different keyways. That is the only tensioner. Whoops, I dropped it. Or is it the 40 thousandths? It's one of the two. That will fit in a para left-hand side ABIS keyway without slipping out. Very, very weird that. Discovered it purely by chance that it gets in there and doesn't just slip out. Not this one, but nonetheless. So there is a use for them. They also come with three of these, which is a double-ended. I don't know where the other one is. Now, problem with these is that it has got a slight loop like that to allow you when it's in the top bottom of the keyway on this side of the keyway when you want to get a rake in there. So on the other side, it actually has a little low bit and goes out. But I'm used to picking down, so that low bit gets in the way. So on these, I've actually cut them off. And this one I've trimmed down because my favorite lock is the ABIS 7240, and that fits in there like a treat. It fits, I mean, that's not falling out. That stays in there. It works a treat. So I have found a use for them. And remember again, this is not knocking COVID instruments. They just designed for American knock. They're designed for picking up. And I'm using them all the time. I love them. They are absolute sheer quality. You're not going to have a problem with them. Next, we're going to move on to the Echelon set and Jimmy Longs, and then we're going to move on to locks. So the Echelon set is a different animal. Now, for me, again, this is personal preference, right? I find it very little use to me, except very useful to me. So, and I'll tell you why. I'm very fond of their pry bars. They come in four different. I'm not a pry bar fan. They come in four different sizes. They've also got the 25,000. So I keep them in there because when I get to a door or something, I keep them in there. Then you get these set of ergo tensioners, which are for ergonomic comfort. Now, again, we are just picking up, okay? And that will go in your top of the keyway, the 50,000s, and that's great. I mean, this is a lovely design. It's a lovely design, and look at that. Except I'm not used to picking up, so I can't use them. I wish they went that way because now I'm stuck with that. So I actually need to use a double-ended. You see, and now I'm going the wrong way, and it's not working for me. If you're American, it's going to work for you. If you're European and you're picking down, if you can pick both ways, it's going to work for you. See that I don't have as much control over that. So I wish they went the other way. Lawlock tools to make a left-handed, right-handed ergo tensioner. But these I keep because I know one day I'm going to learn to pick up. It then has only 3 hooks. And These three are covered anyway in the Reaper set, but it has something else that's quite special, and that is the Twin Peak. And this Twin Peak is an absolute blockbuster also, especially with more extreme bitting. Then you have your wave rakes, and these guys haven't really gone all out, on the four different ones, but they've got the sharper peaks there, and these are a bit narrower, so I like them, and that's enough. That is actually it is enough. Um, it then has a tubular lockpick, uh, tensioner, and pick. Now, my issue with this is that the only two, and this is not COVID Instruments' fault. I mean, I'm sure these things are common in the States. Tubular locks are not common here. So the only one I could get was a BBL safe one, right? And as you can see, it's got a little bit of warding there or something. And this tensioner doesn't tension. So I've had to get the Sparrows tensioner. Can you see this is more dual purpose? Let's get them into focus. So nothing wrong with this. It's just uh, those are the only ones I could get. So I had to get this, and I haven't really had. I don't really do a lot of tubulars. So and it's got the little pokey tubular thing, so we can pick that, right? And then it's got a uh, dimple rake. Now, in their defense, the only dimple lock I could find, I have ordered off Temu, is this, and that doesn't really work. A cheap Chinese. So I've ordered dimple picks and you name it. So at the moment, not really much use for this, but I am looking forward to trying it. So the case itself is fantastic. Would I buy another one? Probably not. But the case, yes, because this is my everyday carry, and it's mostly populated with the Reaper set and a few other hooks and key extractors and stuff that I use on a daily basis. So yeah, I kind of like stick to the Reaper for daily use. I know I'm getting quality. I know it's not going to break. I know that it's very versatile. I find the Echelon set to try and cover too much and not very well, whereas this is a bit more specific. Um, am I a fan of COVID Instruments? Yeah, it's great. I mean, this really a lot of traffic, and believe me when I say that this is the most daily used pick daily and for hours. So that is a really good buy. Definitely, I think get one, and it's not a hell of a lot with the Apex set that's gone down, and the case is great. So, I mean, if you had to buy your ergo tensioners, your Garrison case, and those rakes, it's going to cost you $50 anyway. So get the bloody thing. You know what I mean? Get the Reaper, get that, and that pretty much covers you. That covers you in for like 99% of pin tumbler locks. I did also get Jimmy Longs. There's something very interesting about Jimmy Longs. Jimmy Longs are possibly the most popular in lock sport. The the thing that makes them incredibly strong is this now you can get very technical, is the shape of this. So when you put a force on there, and now this is I've got I think it's 0.5 mil, yeah, and I actually ordered the gem hook, and then just I couldn't get used to that profile, so I changed to the Euro hook, and because of this sort of wedge design, it transfers force which gets absorbed by that, which means that the shank is less likely to bend, and that's why they really last good. It's very well designed. And Jimmy Longs is a great guy with a great reputation, and his picks are very well priced and they're high quality. So if you're in the States and you can hook up, just go to the Jimmy Long site and buy all of them. Just be done. Um, my only thing for me is the handles are a little bit thick, so I can't really every day carry all of them. Otherwise, I would. That's probably all I'd buy is the Jimmy Longs. So I think that kind of covers picks, right? Go straight to the top. Don't waste money on gimmicks and rubbish and cuck and mediocre quality, and you're throwing money at nothing. So let's move on to, now we've got this in a right state, the locks, because now you need locks. Okay, so let's start off with cheaper locks. So remember the high tolerance, low tolerance. This is a cheaper lock. Now, many more intermediate lock picker has been completely stymied by your off-the-shelf cheap Chinese locks you get. There's no security pins, nothing. They just can't pick it, or it's taking forever, or it's bloody difficult to pick with no security. And why is that? Well, it's because the tolerances are very high. So you cannot really establish a binding order. You cannot establish, because it's so much, everything is flopping around inside there. And even if you got the first one that's bound and you try and get the next one to set, it's just going to, like, the other one will pop back down, and you're going to go all over the show, and you really, really, you can struggle forever with one of the cheapest locks. I mean, you can open up an American 1105, but you pick one of these off the shelf in the Chinese shop, good luck with that. That thing is really going to give you a hard time. So this is a 6-pinner, no name brand. I don't know what it is, but it is actually quite a good lock. And the bitting isn't too extreme, and it's 6-pinner, but there's no spool or security pins in this. It's just standard pins and standard driver pins. And it's a really fun pick. You got to work at it, but it's straight. So you want to start off. Let's get out these pinning tweezers with, that is a driver pin. That is a standard driver pin. You can see it's just straight, okay? There's nothing very special about that. And that's a standard key pin. These are both from the ABUS 7240. And you can see there's no serrations or spools or anything. Then when you talk about, now we're going to move on to a stand. So that's in your standard lock. Now you get an ABUS 7230. Your tolerances are a lot lower, so it's a more precise lock. It's more precise, so it's going to give you a lot more feedback. So it's worth spending money on a slightly higher. So this is a 7240. I have ordered some 7230s just to check them out, and they have standard pins in. So there you can focus on that. That is a good beginner lock. There's no secured spools or serrated pins. It's just standard key pin, standard driver pin, and you can learn tension control and binding order and jiggle test. So you can spend a lot of time with that lock with your higher end kit, and you're not spending a lot of money on locks and everything. You're just getting something that is really, really high quality, which means very easy to pick, oddly enough, because a lot of locks like this, their security features is very bad engineering. Really, believe me, it works. So this is going to give you some nice feedback in that. And then you got your ABUS 7240. It's cuttable, so you can progressively pin it. It's very affordable. And the first pin is always, or the first driver pin is always a standard one, and the rest are all spools. So it's got 5 spools, and that's a spool pin, you see there. So basically you get into a false set. So when you set that and it turns a little bit, then you know you got a spool pin. So when you jiggle test, say a bit more tension, wiggle your pick, and it's not moving, but it did turn, you know you got a spool pin, because that, the shear line now sits over here in the middle of that. And that way, so this is a brilliant lock. Once you've gone from the 7230, you've gone up to the 7240. Why do I have so many ABUS? Well, because they're more commonly available here and very affordable. So That is a very good lock to learn on. And then you're learning spools. And then you're going to progress up to your American 1105. So once you've understood your tensioning, you've understood your jiggle test, you're setting your pins, your tension control, and your binding order. Because when you don't have these security spools or anything affecting your picking, you can sort of get a better feel of the binding order. And then you understand the binding order is going to allow you to adjust your tension, and your jiggle test is going to tell you how you are getting them set or not set or overset or underset. Then you're going to move on to the American. And this is also a milestone lock because they have serrations. So these are serrations, little grooves. And these Americans are bastards, right? They put their serrations in the key pin, and they've got serrated straight drivers. So you'll see there, that's got serration. And they've got serrations on their spool pins. So, you can maybe see a small serration on the top and the bottom, whereas your Abus just has a spool pin. So that would be moving up 10,000 piece puzzle, or let's say 5,000 piece puzzle, 10,000 piece puzzle, 15 or 20,000 piece puzzle. These locks are guttable, so you can start pinning. Progressive pinning isn't just from the front to the back, you can also do it from the back to the front. And then I would suggest you move on to your lockout tagouts. These are dead cores, so they're not sprung. And your Abus lockout tagout has got just serrated pins. It doesn't have spool pins. There is one here, and they're not much in the way of serrations. There is only two, one on the top and one on the bottom. And your Master Lotto, which has serrated pins, and spool pins. And by then, and only by then, so I mean, here what we've got here, minus the Abus 7230, is really what you need to start. So, guys, just to wrap up, you get an acrylic lock, get one. I mean, I've started with a 300 Rand, which is $10, because I want to look at disc detainers, right? So I got this single Frugo, and it was like, you know what? So it works. it works, right? But it isn't the best. It's really thick. It's just stamped on. I can't really modify it. But I don't know how disc detainers work. So I got this so I can actually visually see. And then I put that aside, and I've ordered the RWB custom picks. I'm really excited to get that, which is the best of the disc detainer picks you can get. Because I've learned the hard way. I'm not going to go from beginner stuff to intermediate stuff to advanced stuff. Just go straight to the advanced and save yourself that whole stack of money and go and spend your money on locks rather. Instead of more picks, get more locks. And that is really, really all you need. You don't need more. Yes, you can. We are inquisitive. We want to see how the rakes work. We want to see how the stuff works. For your gutting, I just, you know what, I use this Sparrows one, is the only one I can get. And it doesn't actually fit very well. But the plug followers, well, they work. I'm happy with that. They work. It's a plug follower. You know what I mean? It's a plug follower. I do use this to gut because you do have to push that circlip out evenly. You can't yank at it, you'll bend it, and then your lock will actually be a little bit seized. And it'll be hard to turn because you've got a kink in your retaining clip or circlip there. So that does the job. It's a gut wrench. Let's not get fancy there. does the job, right? And pinning tweezers that came with a multi-pick, right? And this is a beautiful, lovely. I was blown away by this little pinning tray from Collier Instruments. It's a mini pinning tray, and I also use this on a daily basis. So that really kind of covers my Locksport kit. Now, this Reaper set is so great. I've actually bought like two of them, and you can get from the chop shop. And then spare number twos because obviously the delivery here. But let me just show you. I mean, apart from what we've seen there, these are all unused spare bits that I never ever use. And so, guys, skip that. Skip it. Go straight to the top there. You can see extra number twos. They are that good. And Ali, please don't eat the kitten's food. The kitten was at the vet, got injections this morning. It's unhappy kitten. Um, don't, here's a cheap Chinese. Yes, this is spares for my multi-pick. The deforest are very seldom used, and you can get a triple. That's also okay. But, that's just stuff that's sitting there, right? It's just sitting. It's not being used. So I just wish I knew those three things. I wish I knew, obviously, tension control, get good tensioners. Um, your pick profiles, get a pick heavy hook, a set, and your jiggle tests, and go on to your top tier. Now, there are a lot of other makers out there, but I think the top ones really on the market, top three, are your multi-pick, your COVID instruments, and Jimmy Longs. And when you pick them up and you hold them, you know where your money went. It didn't go just into junk that is going to sit in a drawer. Um, and that is really, really the point I'm trying to make. Spend your money on locks, not gimmicks. This isn't a gimmick. This is a visualization. And then I got the RWB custom set, and I know I put that aside and I can get out my other locks and give them a whirl. So, guys, please I know this has been a very long video, and those that have stuck to the end, just like, thanks for watching. And I do hope that this has saved you a hell of a lot of money and a hell of a lot of frustration, because there's nothing more frustrating than getting a whole set and, just, just kind of feel like, well, I just wasted money on nothing there. So this, to me, I mean, I know I don't like really going echelon set, but this travels with me every day. I use it all the time, every day. And often I don't want to get out all the lock picking. I just put that on the table. I get my locks out and I go for it, because that's what you need. When it comes to locks, then, let's see. Then you can spend your money. There, you can put your money into that, because that is, after all, the puzzles themselves. So why are we spending so much money on gimmicks and less on the actual puzzles? And let's enjoy, because let me tell you, this is just the beginning. We haven't even moved into the other stuff. We haven't really properly moved into disc detainers or any of the dimples, nothing. It's just pin tumblers. So, the amount of puzzles is actually quite infinite. And it's all about enjoying the journey. It's all about learning how, and this is the thing, learning how to solve the puzzle. Not just, when it comes to the binding order, you don't want to remember the binding order for this lock. You want to know how to get to that binding order. You want to know how to solve the puzzle. You don't just want to know this lock and you can open this lock over and over because you know this binding. You want to know how to get to that. And that's what I mean by learning the lock, not learning its binding order, because I can take two of these right next to each other. I have a number of them. I can say 2, and I can pin them up to the exact same pinning, and they're going to have a different binding order. Bottom line, that's what's going to happen. So learn how to get to that binding order. Learn how to do the jiggle tests. Learn how to spend money on real decent kit, and not, buy once, cry once. So guys, I hope this video has saved you some money. And yeah, let me know in the comments. Thanks.